Hi, this is Kurt Lewandowski in the math department. This year I've been asked to oversee the distance learning and hybrid math classes. There are a number of instructors that will be teaching hybrids for the first time, or instructors that in the future are interested in possibly teaching hybrid classes. We thought we'd provide some support. I remember the first time I taught a hybrid class a few years ago, it was difficult for me to envision and wrap my brain around how that might play out. So we thought we'd give you some support material. So math hybrid classes, what are they? Well, you're going to find they can be a lot of different things, and I'm just going to present you with some options. And you might have some great ideas on how to improve or restructure things. So here's what we currently do, and I hope this is helpful for you. Let's begin with our traditional math classes. Our traditional classes are 4 or 5 credits, which means you see your students 4 or 5 hours a week in class. My question for you to start with would be, during these 4 or 5 hours that you see them in class, really think about what it is you do in the classroom to provide them with their learning. What kind of things do you do? Activities, lectures, tests, worksheets, question and answers. You know, what type of things do you do with them face to face during those 4 or 5 hours? Because when it comes to hybrid, you may see them less often, but you still want them to have a similar type of learning experience. So let's look at what a hybrid math class could be. Hybrid is just a term, simple term, that means part of the class is being met face-to-face like you currently do, and part of the class is being done outside of class, which of course places more responsibility on the students. So for example, a 4-credit class might end up with 3 hours in class and only 1 hour split away and put on them outside of class. I think our current Math 111 hybrids have their 5 credits, so it's 4 hours in class, 1 hour out of class. So that's just an option, but there is no set way of doing it. More traditionally, our hybrid classes, since most of our developmental classes are 4 hours total, our traditional hybrid classes just splits right down the middle and says, okay, we're going to do 2 hours in class, face to face, and then we'll leave 2 hours for them to do outside of class, which of course is what you're probably facing. So the question, the big question, really becomes, if that's the structure of how we're doing this, we're seeing them face to face 2 hours, and then there's an additional 2 hours outside of class, the question really becomes, what do we do with this time in class, the 2 hours, and then what do we do with this time, the 2 hours outside of class? Let me begin by just suggesting that this 2 hours outside of class, this is learning, student learning, above and beyond what you normally would do in terms of assigning homework and activities that are done outside of class. So let's come up with some suggestions. Let's begin with suggestions for the 2 hours in class. Some things that you might do with that time to make it productive and more efficient. Let me start off with a suggestion of a homework quiz. I use this every day we meet. So if we meet once a week, the very first thing we do when students come to class, before questions and answers and anything else, is I give them a homework quiz. Now, just so you understand, the reason I do this is for a number of reasons. First and foremost, I want to hold them accountable. I want them to know when they come to class on time, there's going to be a homework quiz. I do not allow retakes, so this, number one, encourages them to be on time. Number two, and you may need to understand this, and you'll see it in the schedule I'll show later on in the presentation, the way my class is structured is that all of this 2 hours outside of class learning, that is instruction and learning that they were supposed to do prior to coming to class. So any new material they get exposed to and are expected to learn and get help about if they don't understand, that's expected before they come to class. So my students come to class, the very first thing is they take a homework quiz. It holds them accountable for being on time. It holds them accountable for having attempted to learn the material prior to coming to class and getting help with that. The other thing it really does, and this is the most valuable thing to me, is that during the homework quiz, I choose to use clickers. We have 3 sets, the math department, of Turning Point Technology clickers. And I am a big advocate of these because what it does is it allows them and me to understand how much of that material they were supposed to have done out of class do they really understand, and how much do we really need to talk about. It really guides my instruction. To give you an idea of how I make use of that, the value of that, when I ask a question using the clickers, this is part of the homework quiz, I may ask them 3, 4, 5 questions is all, and they are all multiple choice. So it'll ask them a standard question like you see here, and then it'll give these 4 answers over here. as options. Which one is correct? It does not show them the correct solution. It does not show them this graph. It just simply asks the question and gives them the answers. After everybody has responded and I close polling, and only after, does it give this graph. And this graph shows how the class responded. Then following that, I click again and it gives the correct answer indicator. And what that does is, immediately after every question, students know, did I get it right or not? Am I understanding it? But more importantly for me as a teacher, I look and I say, well, only 25% of the students got this one right. Clearly there's something in this concept or question that they didn't understand yet. And that frankly helps determine for me what it is we still need to talk about in this abbreviated time. Had I asked this question and 80% of the students got it right, I might choose, hey, there's no need for us to talk about it. We're understanding it pretty well. So this gives you an idea as to how using the clickers provides me and the class immediate feedback on every question about what we're understanding and what we're not. Let me clean this up a little bit so that we don't have to look at all of the markings. Okay, so we got the homework quiz out, and you could do this pencil and paper. You just won't have that immediate graph feedback as to how many students are understanding. The other thing is you can in fact do a mini lecture. You can look at the sections that were covered that week. You can determine what concepts are most important. You can determine what types of things tend to trip students up, and you can in fact come in here and do a mini lecture. There's nothing wrong with that. Just realize that you've only got a limited amount of time and students only have the limited ability to understand how much material you give them. You can do a question and answer. You can just off the cuff say, hey, what things didn't you understand from previous, which of course you may or may not get good responses. The other thing I may suggest for my Math 111 hybrid is I actually require them. It's part of the syllabus. There's points attached to it. Every week they submit at least one very specific question from the material. So they might say, hey, on problem number 38, I didn't understand how to do this, and they actually turn it in at the very beginning of class. And then I quickly look at the stack, and from those requests, I can usually determine the couple three main questions that the class as a whole has, and you can address those in kind of a mini lecture format. So there's a variety of ways of doing the question and answer things and leaving it up to them to provide you with what it is they need to see. And you want to really train them to be thinking as a learner. Also, what am I understanding? What am I not understanding? Can I go get help about that from the tutors, from my teacher in the office hours? Or can I email the question, but also make it part of the preparation for class. The last thing would be a group activity and project, and our department on the iDrive already has a number of activities that are attached section by section, course by course, most of them in Word format, multiple versions. You are more than welcome. What I do is I always end the day with putting them into groups, having them do a common activity, handing one in per group, because it really allows them to solidify, and that's really what my class meeting does, is it takes things they were supposed to have learned prior to coming, it does a quick homework quiz, we iron out the wrinkles, answer questions, and then they get to talk about it and dabble in it, get their hands on it. Then they hand in an activity. So every day they meet, there's points available on a homework quiz, there's points available on an activity, so it really, again, holds them accountable for why they should be in class. So there's some ideas. The one thing I really want to leave you with is, for in class, I really want you to leave with the fact that if you're normally lecturing 4 hours each week, you really can't expect to take a 4 hours worth of lecture and cram it into 2 hours. That's not productive for you. That's not reasonable for students. You might really need to think about how you restructure that time you spend face-to-face. The next group of suggestions I would make is, okay, so if I'm only seeing them 2 hours a week in class face-to-face, how do I support or accentuate the learning by the 2 hours they have outside of class? So here again are some suggestions. I know all of us assign homework, and that would be certainly part of your out-of-class assignment, but not everybody does make use of the online programs that come with our textbooks. The Math 60, 65, and 95 uses MathZone. The Math 111 and 112 uses My Math Lab. Both are similar. Both of them provide some real advantages to just your traditional, here, do these 15 problems out of the book and look in the back to see if you're right or wrong. Let me give you just a little bit of idea on how that works. A question is asked. You get to determine how many questions and which questions you assign. A question's asked. There's a place for them to put their answer. But what's added here is they can immediately check their answer. And yes, it's like looking in the back of the book. It tells them right away whether they're right or wrong. And if they're right, then hey, good, let's move on. Let's go to the next question. If they're wrong, this box immediately says, hey, you can try another one. So first of all, they can try a specific problem as many times as they like until they get it right. So they don't just get the one static attempt. But also, if they didn't get it right, there's a lot of support. So it's not just them and the book. There's some hints that they can click this button and it will give them a hint as, okay, here's something you might try next. There's actually a Show Me, which is literally a similar problem worked out from beginning to end that they can follow. There's a guided solution, which is great. This is very interactive. It gives them the first step to do, ask them to supply some of the information in the first step, then they'll say, good, you got it right, let's do that. What would you do next? And it literally holds their hand step by step, and they can use all of these and then come back and try another one. There's an Ask My Instructor. This is great because it actually sends you, the teacher, an email with their question attached directly to this problem so you can answer and address this problem specifically. It comes to you in email, you reply by email. There's a link to a text. This is just like having a textbook in front of you. It literally opens up an exact PDF version of the textbook in the section that this material is covered. So it's a great resource. Their textbook is always right there available to them. They certainly can print out the problem and bring it into a tutor or you or ask someone else. So there's a lot of help. Students can say, oh, I'm not understanding it, and use all of these guided helps and then go back and try it again, and they can keep trying it until they get it right. So obviously this provides a lot more support to students than they would normally get just looking in a book. Next, Moodle. That's the college's platform for supporting not only online and distance learning hybrid classes, but traditional classes. You can have a Moodle shell created for all of your classes. And the advantage there is, of course, you can keep accurate grades and interact or provide announcements and those kind of things. But here's some specific things you can do for the 2 hours outside of class. You can also take activities, the type that you do in class or additional activities and worksheets. They might include some instructions, some definitions, some links to outside resources. But these activities and worksheets can be linked and placed and saved in your Moodle shell. Let me show you what that might look like. If you haven't been in Moodle, this is what the Moodle platform, kind of the basic shell, looks like. There's a lot of things here. I won't point out all of it, but there's always a place for you to put a specific announcement week to week in terms of what's going on in the course that week, what things they're expected to do. As you can see, I always have here the availability. Students can always access the syllabus and the calendar, and even has some instructions on how to start the class, links them to Math Zone to do their homework. But you also see here I have activities that I actually have them print off, fill out, and turn in. I have a couple different formats, Word and PDF, but I have my online students do a couple of these each term, and really the reason for it is if their homework's done in a computer program where they're entering things, I want them to practice pencil and paper and turn it in so that I can review their work, and this way they can print it off. They can bring it to tutors or me or get help from anyone. They can work together even. But this is to be done outside of class, and then they have to submit it to me either by turning it in. If it's a hybrid class, they can just turn it in, but they can fax it, they can scan it, email it, bring it to my office. And then also I provide answer keys to the worksheets after they're due. So they can look up the worksheets and have those available. So these can be instructional in nature as well. You can provide video links here. There's a lot of things that you can do to help your students within Moodle. There's a discussion forum component where they can actually go in and ask questions or answer questions of their other classmates. I do this on my online and I require it every week. On a hybrid, I don't know that I would make use of this as much. Also within Moodle, as I mentioned, you can post online video links. Certainly YouTube, if you just did a Google search for how do you find the slope of a line, there are many videos, some good, some not so good, but you can actually take those links and you can actually put them within the weekly announcement or on the side for instruction link. There's great sites like YouTube, Khan Academy, Purple Math doesn't necessarily have videos, but has a lot of good resources and instruction on how to do things. So there's online resources that already exist that you can just point students to. One other idea for my online students, my Math 111, I require them to search out a specific number of links each term, and they post them within a discussion forum. They're essentially sharing with their classmates links that they found was helpful for the specific topics and concepts that they're learning. So that's an idea you can incorporate for outside of class learning. You can do online testing, and of course what this does is it alleviates the amount of hours you actually spend in class giving tests. You can have part of the test given online, you can give all the tests, you can have weekly quizzes. I have my students do homework each week, and then I immediately have them within the week do a small homework quiz. And it just continually keeps them rehearsing and practicing and perfecting what they know. And then, of course, just like you do in-class group activities, you can take your class, break them into groups, and assign them activities and projects that they complete outside of class. So lots of ideas. Lastly, I'd like to leave you with, again, a little bit of vision of how the course might be structured, because I think for most people this could really be a benefit. So essentially, let's presume this isn't an online class. Let's pretend that this is a hybrid class, and this hybrid class meets every Monday at 10 a.m. So from 10 to noon on Mondays, we meet. And so what I would do is I would, during the week, assign a student a certain amount of material. In this case, they have a math zone assignment. This material is supposed to be done and completed, meaning if they don't understand it, they contact me, come in and see me, or they go to the tutoring center, or they contact their classmates, their number. But this material is to be completed by 10 a.m. That's the deadline on my homework. 10 a.m. when they walk into class, all of that's supposed to be done. And of course, the first thing we do is we take the homework quiz, so it holds them a little bit accountable. We make sure we ask and answer any questions they have over that material, and then we kind of solidify their understanding with an in-class activity. So in that 2 hours, there is certainly some dialogue and explaining and mini lecturing, but really it's responding to the parts of the material they didn't understand. So then the following week, then they leave at noon, and starting at noon here, they're on to new material, and then they have that assignment that's given to them. And again, they're supposed to complete that prior to 10 a.m. the following Monday when we meet. And then lastly, you can see here not only do their homework, but there's some outside activities that are due and turned in. So this is kind of the structure of things that's really helped me structure my hybrid classes, and I've really seen pretty good success with my students. Holds them a little bit more accountable, being that they signed up for a hybrid anticipating that there are certain things that are going to be required of them outside of class. So that's kind of a snapshot of what hybrid classes could be. That's what they currently are. I just have to remind you that from instructor to instructor, even now, there are slight variations between us and the department, and you will certainly have some great ideas on how to improve this. Lastly, I just want to encourage you that if you're not using MathZone or MyMathLab, if you're not using Moodle, if you're not using activities or not using the clickers, all of those I would be more than happy to help you with. If you contact me, we can sit down one-on-one. I can kind of introduce you to all those things. I'm creating some intro videos. I'll make sure you get those links. And any of those things and all of those things, we would be more than happy to share with you. All of the activities are on the iDrive. You can access those. Moodle shells, we can literally copy into a shell for you, and you can edit it to make it work for you. All of the homework sets that are already created online, we can copy for you. So much of this material is already created, and we'll be happy to share it with you. Just let us know. So don't hesitate to contact me, and I hope your hybrid class is as successful as you hope it to be.